Ready when you are.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining us in this episode of BRM Brownback. I'm your host, Suresh GP. We are into episode number 35. Today, I have an esteemed guest joining us, Cynthia Baughman, who is the Water Utilities Technology Director and has been in that space of BRM for quite some time and has done different roles. So let's connect with her and understand her experience and the journey on the business relationship management. So thanks, Cynthia, for taking time and being with us today with our viewers on this episode of BRM Brown Bag. Excited to have you. And tell us a little bit about your background and how did you step into this journey of, business relationship management, and what's your current role as a water utilities technology director?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's very nice. Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey to say the least. I've worked for my current employer for over 27 years in just a variety of roles. So I work for a municipal government. I started off as a programmer and application support specialist and kind of moved over into network server administration and was in a network management role for many years over there. And I don't know, back in the 2008 or so timeframe,
Sure.
2006, 7, 8, back in there, we had started looking at the service delivery model. And kind of the managers in the department were serving in kind of this ad hoc role as before BRM was a term, but
Right,
as service delivery managers for certain departments across the city.
right.
We started kind of down that ITIL framework
Yeah.
journey and started implementing that framework in the IT department. And in, I think it was 2011, I think, we decided to formalize the BRM role.
Right.
Um, so there were two of us that were technology managers that were selected to kind of spearhead this effort for our department. This was back before the BRM Institute was formed.
Yeah.
So, there wasn't a lot of information out there.
Correct.
We were um, doing as much research as we could. We were having conversations with Gartner on what does this look like. We worked with our project management team at the time to kind of define those responsibility matrix. And then we were so thankful when the BRM Institute formed and we had kind of that formalized structure and training and framework that we were able to learn and study. We both were some of the first early adopters, I
Yeah.
guess, of that framework were considered founding members of,
Sure.
of that because we were such early adopters, both got certified. And so during that time, as a BRM in IT, I serviced half the city departments, which is roughly 20 to 25 departments. Um, and I had all the public works departments. So I was working with the water department as one of my departments at the time on a pretty big, massive undertaking that they had going on. So they were searching for a new asset management system, going through that journey. We went to RFP. We were kind of putting together an asset management framework here. And so I was working with them from the IT side, the partner side, helping understand their needs and help kind of shape what that was going to look like. And went through the software selection process with them. And then when we got ready to implement, the person that was in the water department that was their project manager left the city
Oh,
and they had a big gap over here. And so it opened up an opportunity for me to kind of transition to the business side and really lead that major implementation of a new software, of this cultural change over here of the way that they were going to do business in water from then forward. So I, jumped at the opportunity, welcomed trying to do something new. And so, still kind of had that BRM lens and mindset and framework over here on when we went into that project. So, fast forward. So I moved over here as a manager level. A couple of years ago, I became the technology director. And, I still kind of have that mindset of all those principles, even though I don't call myself a BRM,
Sure.
really those foundational principles really shape
Correct.
everything I do, right? The relationship building, the looking at the everything with kind of a strategic um, viewpoint, always looking at kind of big picture, trying to understand value and need on our side and try to shape that in relation to what IT resources are available for us, what other technologies are out there. Um, and I engage stakeholders really on a daily basis, having those kind of conversations. So, that just drives me and helps me to build this roadmap that we need here for where our department wants to go um, in support of the city's strategic vision, really.
Awesome. I think it's a long haul from the way that you started off before BRM Institute came into launch from 2013 onwards, and it's a great journey because you've learned and you've carved your own path like a trailblazer to see and make this impactful. So, how does your role as a technology director influence the approach towards BRM within the water utility? Because you really mentioned that you might not be playing that role of a business relationship manager, but those principles are so sound enough that you're applying in a lot of these contexts. So, how do you think that that has influenced your role within this water utility space?
Um, you know, uh, it really helped. I think it's helped us become kind of more forward thinking and
Right.
strategic in what we want to do. Um, I look at the city council's strategic initiatives and I look at the need of the water department. And I've had this approach since I've been over here of building out kind of a 2 to 3 years strategic technology plan every, kind of on this rolling cycle every, like I said, 2 to 3 years of where we need to go, what we need to do, what do I see in the industry. Obviously, we're highly regulated, so I always have to look at what's going on there, and then bring that information to IT and sit down with my BRM in
Right.
IT and kind of handle those negotiations of what we're going to be able to do and when we're going to be able to do it. So, I mean, that those BRM principles are really part of my daily practice over here and kind of shape everything. I view my entire management team as kind of those strategic partners and those stakeholders and everything. We're always looking for where we can add value to the department to help everyone from our field workers on up to my manager, make better decisions and do things more efficiently in the department. So that is just kind of foundational, really, in this role,
And do you
applying those.
And do you
Go.
think that the business relationship manager kind of a role or designation is becoming more strategic? Because a lot of companies and cities that we have seen it, sometimes it's more tactical. So what's the perception of BRM in the city, and how has been that experience to step up this game? Because I love the way that you said that there's a forward thinking, you become more strategic. but this would not have built in a day. So how did we kind of go up the value chain to move and establish that level of trust with the business and say that, yeah, we need them, and they are making a lot of impact and value to the departments.
Yeah, having lived the role in the IT department and working with my BRM, I know it's not a purely 100% strategic role day after day. There is a lot of tactical stuff that gets
Right,
engaged, but our BRM is kind of that point of contact on, any issues, not just, well, not to say any issues, but if there's a major um, response going on in water that one of our systems is down or there's a major network thing. Certainly she's aware,
right,
and she acts as that communication channel for me to know what's going on because she's part of that team in IT
right.
that is, trying to solve those problems. But, that's to say the nature of IT is you're going to have those kind of break fix tactical things that come up on a daily basis. You can't always be working on the next shiny thing. Um, that's what keeps us all employed,
Sure,
right? It's
sure.
break
Absolutely.
fix. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to meet your business partners from where they are, right? For today, it's a firefighting issue. I need to fix this issue. Get this done before you talk about strategic roadmap and, beautiful PowerPoints element to do that. So coming to the point that with your knowledge and experience, how did you bridge the gap between IT and operational departments within your organization? Because I know everybody has got their own stake and they have their own deliverables and KPIs. Not everybody starts to think alike, though you have a vision and stuff. So how has your knowledge helped to bridge the gap?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And, that's something I'm trying to instill in my team. Had a conversation earlier today with them, as a matter of fact, is sometimes you have to broaden your view a little
Yeah.
bit, look a little more beyond just the issue at hand. So for me, it starts with understanding that vision
Hmm.
at the city level, at the department level. Where does my boss want us to go? What is the mission, right? What is the
Right.
mission at hand? Um, and there, from there, my BRM knowledge really comes into play a lot. Shaping customer demand. There's only so many hours in the day, there's only so many resources. So we get a lot of requests in, and we have to prioritize them, certainly, just like an IT department does. My team here, my technology team, kind of acts as a first line of defense. We do a lot of really neat forward thinking things and a lot of development things, but we also act as a first line of defense before we escalate something to IT. So, so shaping demand, um, aligning priorities, that kind of thing. Building meaningful relationships. That's something I've tried to cultivate a lot in my team through always trying to add value,
Right.
right? We get them to kind of, I'm teaching them to ask all the right questions and stuff. Um, and certainly, when there's things that major initiatives that we're trying to push through, having those conversations and looking for those people that can help me champion a cause is another big um, thing that helps us because one person can't really always push the initiatives or the implementation through, and so it really takes kind of that team to help change a mindset when you're trying to implement something as some of the major things we do. Moving from a computer to an iPad or, trying to implement new software, changing the way some of the field workers do business, you know, identifying a few key champions and then letting them help you kind of move those initiatives forward. I also am, very skilled at that kind of translation between business and technology, so I help things on this side, on the business side. I'm always helping educate my team on the IT situation, right? IT water department is one of 40 plus departments that IT supports. So helping them understand that aspect, and then helping IT understand the water side of the business. So bridging that gap is really important, having that foundational knowledge, that experience on both kind of the business and the IT side is really transformational at times. Trying to explain to them, IT's breadth and width of their support portfolio that they have going on is something. And then just, managing those communications from the field workers on up through senior staff. So, bottom line, bridging the gap is for me, I am enabling my department to do things better, through the use of technology.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And one of the things you illustrate is also about communication, right? So in terms of, it's not about communicating, okay, this is what you're going to do it, but there is so much moving parts when you deliver a project, an initiative, or an outcome. And some people are just talking about what am I supposed to do from a deliverable standpoint or activity standpoint. And they lose the whole sight of the big picture of why did we have this at the first place. So I like the way that you said that playing this whole role and this quadrant as well as the other quadrant to understand and bridging this gap and having a meaningful conversations to connect the dots is extremely valuable. But to be honest, Cynthia, that not everybody has your rare skill of being in the technology side as well as the business side of things and IT. So, do you think that has been your unique differentiator in the city? I'm not sure if you have a clone of what you do with other people that could help them do better.
no, I don't. I'm trying to find that person that I can bring up and get some of this knowledge, because eventually one of these days I will want to retire.
Right, right,
No, I mean, right now I have a great team that supports me, and just trying to engage with them daily and teach them on, like I said, we like to ask those questions. What problem are we trying to solve? One of the biggest drivers for us is in connecting the dots for our end users, is really explaining to them why we're making a change, why we're implementing something new, why we're putting in an upgrade, something, and giving them the why. So, you know, we maintain good relationships with the end users. And that's important. Just having their trust
right,
in you
right.
is a big deal. Um, you said it earlier in talking about the BRM, kind of meet them where you are. That's kind of how we approach working with our end users. So, for example, we have some very intricate technology. We have vans that we use to go out and CCTV sewer lines. So, when we're trying to help them troubleshoot a problem, meeting them where they are in the back of the truck or something, it
Right.
is really important. They can't always come in the office. It's not always about bringing a laptop into an office. It's going out there and meeting them. And I don't ask my team to do anything that I haven't already done myself. I go out to the treatment plants. I get in the back of the sewer van. I go look at the smart manhole covers that we're installing on our sewer system. So, I like to lead by example in that way. But yeah, it's, what problem are we trying to solve, and why are we trying to do it? Really, answering those questions for for our benefit and for the field staff's benefit really goes a long way with that strong relationship and trust.
I love the way that you talked about that being a hands-on person. In the manufacturing world, we call this as Gemba walking. So you kind of walk on the corridor where the actual work is happening. So it's like kind of you dirtying your hands and saying that, oh, I know, understand what's the problem in the sewer. Where do we kind of fold that? I still remember that every time I have a blockage in my house, I need to call the plumber and they're going to find out where is the bottleneck because we have large trees in here in Melbourne and they are trying to suck the water from the pipes. And guess what?
Yep,
It gets choked. And then you
yep.
need to find out the ways that you need to dismantle. So I pretty much understand the problems that you face on a daily basis. But just spending the time on the ground to really find out where the problems are gives you a lot more perspective. So I think let's not build a business relationship management sitting in a castle, but then going out and having that meaningful conversations around and saying that what's the problem and also level of domain expertise. So tell me a little bit about that domain knowledge about water and utility part of it. How much is important for a BRM to really make sense when you talk with people down your order as well as people to understand the real challenges that they go through this water and utility space?
Yeah, I mean, that's been part of it is educating the BRM on what does it mean to be a water utility. So, critical infrastructure, I mean, you can't live without water.
Correct.
And so, I mean, we consider it the most important department, although, we have public safety too. We have um, certainly we have electric utilities, we have water utilities. There are other critical things, but um, so it took conversations, education, demonstration of our technologies, what we do to the BRM to really understand why we need, when we need IT support, we need IT support. It's critical infrastructure. If something in the control room doesn't work, somebody might not be getting water. We might be having to issue a boil water notice if we don't have the right pressure being delivered, something. So that's been a big part of it over the years over here is bringing them along with
Right.
me. I had some of that understanding when I was in IT, but certainly people change, roles change over there, and so just continuing that conversation about what is the water department, what is our mission, what is our primary function, and why is this important to them. So that's been great. We have matter of fact, we met with them last week. We had them over here in our new building, and my management team and the IT team and my BRM met um, together to go through a lot of initiatives and prioritize projects and talk about concerns and things. And so it's an ongoing conversation, and it's a good relationship. Yeah.
Awesome. We talked about really about the conversation, education, and demonstration. Continually having that, it's very valuable. So, in a critical infrastructure like water utilities, one of the things is about how do you balance innovation with reliability and risk management? Because at one time you say that ensure that everything is properly controlled, not doing it, and say, what are you doing new, right? Because in the world of IT, we want to look at the new shiny gadget. You know all about AI, machine learning, and new things that are coming into part. So, from the utility space perspective, what does innovation mean? And how do you balance innovation with risk and reliability?
Yeah. Um, Innovation is important to me and my manager as well. He's very supportive of a lot of the initiatives that I bring forward or he brings to me and I research. So innovation is, to me is looking at new ways to solve problems more efficiently.
Right.
And so over here, depending on what what problem we're trying to solve, what side of the shop we're on. Are we on the IT side of the shop? or the OT side of the shop. And I'll explain that in a minute. But um, our risk tolerance could be much lower if we're talking about our operational technology or OT. So we try and, I always say dream big, but start small.
Right.
So we try and do pilots, certainly, or build things out in a test environment. So um, I like to create innovation plans or strategic plans that kind of look at both of these things. We are doing some AI pilots. We have some things in our utility like a drone that's got AI built into it that we use for inspecting critical infrastructure.
Right.
We're using satellite technology for helping us find leaks in our water and sewer pipes. So there's, machine learning that's out there listening and helping us kind of narrow down the location of where a leak in a pipe is, because it's not always easy to find with the listener tools. So yeah, there's a lot of those things that we like to try, um, but again, risk tolerance can be low at times. So, when you talk about an IT system, so an asset management or a work order system or an email or a financial system, those are those things that people typically are aware of and think about. And your risk appetite might be a little bigger over there. I might be able to put in something a little more uh, forward thinking.
Right.
On our OT side, operational technology or our SCADA systems, those are the systems that are running our pumps to get water out to our citizens, or they're running, the processes at our wastewater treatment plant to treat the wastewater. And we try things over there a little more conservatively. Those are critical systems. If something over there fails, it could mean, regulatory issue, penalties. It could mean a process stops, or as I mentioned earlier, boil water notice or something, we're not getting water out. It could be public health crisis or even, critical injury to somebody if something at the plant goes wrong. So we try to be very thoughtful on those sorts of initiatives. We engage engineering partners to work with us on master plans on those types of projects, and then we're very careful and thoughtful about what we apply on that side. So, cautious on the OT side,
Right.
a little more adventurous, so to speak, on the IT side. We like to do our research and test things thoroughly before we apply them to an OT environment, IT environment, sometimes a little more um, willing to test things and implement them faster than
Right.
on the operational side.
Sure. The final question would be, can you share us an example of how you applied the BRM principles that shaped the outcome of the project? How did it impact the adoption and long-term success? Because we always talk about the proof is in the pudding, right? We can have the great principles and practices in place, but how has it moved the needle? And if you can share some experience with our viewers, that'll be of great value, because everybody is trying to find out how do you measure the success of a BRM, right? What value do they bring to the table? So it's always a perennial question that people ask.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, when I first moved over here, I still was kind of wearing that BRM hat, and I jumped right into this major software implementation over here. So to me, that was really kind of that textbook example um, that I applied, and then I've tried to kind of follow through. So, um, there was a lot of change going on. So I was acting as that strategic partner between my IT project manager and my stakeholders over here. I was kind of the business side project manager as well, kind of um, trying to learn. Well, for the first thing, I was trying to learn the software myself. So going through an implementation with them. So I was trying to wear all the hats at once, but the BRM knowledge, I think, and principles really help drive that. So having really good um, communication with my stakeholders to communicate status and value and where we were on the project was great. So that internal stakeholder team, kind of identifying them. I worked with the end users through every workshop and understood what problems they saw when we were doing the development of this. What is it that you want to see in an end product? And we kind of adapted from there. So worked with them, you know, documenting all of our requirements and moving that along the way. We provided extensive training to the users at the end there. And we got near the end of the project that particular time and saw that we were kind of getting a little off track, kind of brought that whole team back in, kind of did another on a level set, went through some testing scenarios with them to make sure that everybody was comfortable, kind of that core team was comfortable with what solution we were delivering to them before we went live.
Right.
So that we had that buy-in from them, because we were really looking to that core team to then go out and they were our champions to make sure that everybody else was on board and they could kind of help us with that. So, I really feel like applying kind of those processes and really got the adoption and buy-in from the users. It helped with all of the process improvements that we were trying to make along the way by implementing this solution. What else as far as value? I mean, there was just so much that kind of went into that textbook. But we didn't get a lot of pushback. I felt like we had great adoption of it. We had good stakeholder understanding of where we were in adoption and engagement, and really support as we kind of went through that project there until the end and went live with, very few problems considering the breadth of that, kind of the cultural change. So, again, I don't consider myself a BRM, and I don't really have those BRM discussions on a regular basis, but in my mind, that's kind of foundational to everything I do. That having that strong relationship with the end users, with the field workers on up is really important to me. I like that kind of management by walking around
Sure.
philosophy, right? So I don't manage them, but I like to go over to that side of the building and engage with them and make sure that, see and be seen. And sometimes if they see you, they'll go, oh, hey, I'm having this problem, and they'll engage a little easier. So relationship building and having that strength and trust is just really key to everything that me and my team are able to accomplish in our department.
Awesome. So for someone who wants to step into BRM, what kind of skill set you think are absolutely essential to play this role really well? I mean, you have been in this space for quite a number of years, and you're seeing some of the rookies coming in and some of the people trying to dabble around in this new role. What would be your advice in terms of the skills that they need to develop before they come into this position?
Yeah, having really good analytical and critical thinking skills is important, but really being able to look through the lens of the business,
Right.
kind of taking that hat off and sometimes looking at the problem from their side of things, I think is important. Um, I'm always telling my team, you gotta look a little bigger, kind of look forward and bigger and kind of think outside the box a little bit. So those are certainly critical, good communication skills and being able to just develop that rapport and good working relationship with everybody. To this day, I still get people across the city that will call me
Yeah.
and and ask me a question or where should they go or how do they find something out. So I guess I've built that reputation and relationship over the years of, I may not know the answer to your question, but I'll find out.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's a great point of summarizing the skill set that is required about critical thinking and thing. And with all this AI and thing, people just get so much about technology, but your basic critical thinking skills are going to be important to be that
Yeah.
and make that meaningful connection. So it's been a delight, Cynthia, for listening to you at this BRM Brown Bag. I'm sure that our viewers would have got so much value from your rich experience on the business relationship management journey. We hope that we can support, promote, and drive people in this BRM journey because it's an excellent part. As you rightly said, it doesn't matter which role you play. Business relationship management is a critical foundational aspect that needs to be there to build relationships, build trust, and ensure that we look at from the lens of the business. I think it's important that how do you get that empathy? How do you put ourselves into the shoes of the business partners and say, this is the value that I want to generate, and we are on the same mission and goal. So it's been an absolute delight. And thank you so much for taking your time today and spending things with us. And how can people reach out to you if there are any further questions or comments? What's the best way to reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I'm, that
pretty
would probably
active
be
on
the best
that.
way. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
So, but thank you very much. It's been a delight speaking with you, and thank you for asking me to share my story. I appreciate that. So,
It's been great, and thanks so much, and all the best for you and the city to flourish more in the coming years as well. I'm sure with your experience and your insights, the team would reach great success. So, thank you so much, everyone, for watching us in this episode of the BRM Brown Bag. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode of BRM Brown Bag. Until then, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, but also ensure that you can watch that in your Google Podcast, Spotify, and Apple, because whether you're in a gym or you're traveling, you can listen to these videos and the conversations that could inspire you to become better business relationship managers. So thank you, everyone, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in our next episode. Thank you again, Cynthia.
thank you.